welcome to this week's episode of the Rugby Bits podcast. One of two, because we will definitely have one again on Thursday after the All Blacks announce. But we are going to quickly go to the Springbok side, and I'm joined today by Kooks, and Thala may join us later. We're not entirely sure, but Kooks, how you doing, my man?
Hey, it's doing you, Sharky. Yeah,
Very good.
always good on a Tuesday. We are blessed for as podcasters with Rassie and having always naming his sides quite early. So and this side, I mean, he sort of left us with a lot of talk about. I mean, geez, what a blockbuster of a side.
Yeah, crazy. And I agree with you. I think having squads announced on Tuesday is amazing. It's a great breakup in the week. I mean, it's been the longest bye week in history, not having a game on the weekend, but normally we get to sort of unpack that game and then get the squad announced and get ready for things. And then Thursday, the full all sides are announced, and then Saturday's the game. So it's quite nice. But yes, Cooks, what an unbelievable side. So there are 9 changes from the final game that we played against Australia 2 weeks ago. Been lots of talk over the last couple of days about the side that's coming out. We've got in inverted commas, a lock crisis. Maybe it's not even in inverted commas. Maybe it's just real life because, yeah, it's been quite something. I think not one of our Rugby World Cup locks from Rugby World Cup 2023 are available this weekend. There's rumours that Eben may be coming in, but we'll find out a little bit later. But Cook's 9 changes. We'll go through the side just now, but what's the most exciting one for you?
Yeah, geez, I mean, yeah, a lot of crisis of note. But I must say the most exciting one for me is April Fassi at 15. I don't think those on anyone's bingo card when you're sort of naming when the Springbok squad was being named. But I look at April Fassi and this is just reward for the form he's shown in each of the games he started so far. I mean, he's had a fantastic season, and I thought he did everything right to get called back into the side. And against Wales he was fantastic under the high ball. Against Portugal, his running game and creativity, I mean, the try he created for Kirtley was sensational. And then against Australia in Perth in the rain, I thought he saved the best for last. I thought, in that rain he was sensational again under the high ball defensively, and everything that he wanted to sort of do, all the boxes that sort of he had to tick when he left the Springbok camp. He came back and he sort of showed that his kicking game has improved, and his under the high ball game has improved, and also obviously his defense has improved. So for me, it was seeing him at 15, and Russ speaking about that, he's sort of been the form player, the form guy there. So the form guy at 15. So I'm glad to see him getting a start against the All Blacks.
Yeah, that is. It's one of the changes that definitely flew under the radar. Tyler, welcome, my man. We're expecting you a little bit later, but I hope you're doing well. What is? We haven't really gone through the side yet, but what is probably the biggest surprise for you with the squad that was announced?
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Got you.
Yeah, I think from my side, the biggest surprise was obviously number one, we have the injuries to our locks, and we are at. I think the next person up is Kooks, that is going to play for the Springboks. If there's any more interest to people that are 1.9 and above by Saturday.
Yeah, true. I mean, that rules a few of us out, but Cooks, you definitely in line there. And well, we might as well start off at the locks at the moment. So our locks for the weekend: Peter Steph is wearing the number 4 jumper, and Ruan Nokia is wearing number 5. Obviously, Eben's out. The story behind Eben Etzebeth is that he could return, and they will let us know as soon as today, because they announced the side where on Sunday internally they announced it and said that he was available. He picked up a bit of a knock, but then he trained the whole day Monday. Now we all know the rules with the Springboks. If you don't train Monday, you don't play Saturday. So he had a good training session. So that's all sort of pending at the moment. But Cooks, we were discussing about who our number 4 lock would be, and Peter Steph didn't really come up in that conversation. How do you feel about our locks that are named at this moment?
Yes, so it's very interesting. I mean, I saw Jared now on Twitter just said the last time he played number four look was under was under Alistair Coetzee, I think it's 2016 against Italy and Wales, and then it's so seeing him there is quite interesting. I thought obviously I think we'll go straight into a situation where we have Nicholas Jansen van Rensburg in at four, or a bench Jason Dixon who sort of was played four before. Um, so yeah, it is interesting to see him there. But yeah, I think this is so interesting because I mean, like when we saw the All Blacks a couple of weeks ago, they were in lock crisis, and it's hard to know what to make of it. I think obviously we do know that the work rate there is going to be off the charts. I mean, having Peter Steff, Ron Nokia, PJ Dixon, sort of all on the starting side, and they're going to put an absolute shift on the weekend. So, but again, it does worry me not to have hopefully Eben has come back, but Eben and Achia, that's quite a bit of physicality we're losing. I think with the All Blacks, they do get Scott Barrett back, and I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Barrett going straight into the number four jersey, and that does really concern me. I think Scott Barrett is obviously, I mean, is a fantastic player, so and I think in that forward department, he might have the edge over Peter Steff, someone who hasn't played that position for a long time. So yeah, I mean, I do hope that Eben does come through. I think if Eben comes through, then the concern sort of goes down slightly. I think what Peter Steve did at five, we saw that. I think it just allows us to have an extra Lucy. That's the bonus we have. If Peter Steph comes back and goes to five, then PJ Dixon comes in, and then so I'm not too worried about that line out time. But I just think it's a lot of physicality we're losing, then especially against the All Blacks. So I do think, especially with Ethan Blackadder and Scott Barrett coming back, the number four jersey becomes a big loss.
Massive. Um, so, for those who don't remember, Eben Etzebeth, during obviously last year in 2023, but obviously during the World Cup as well, he was one of the best defensive number two jumpers out there. He's also our number one jumper currently in 2023, and followed by Ulrich Loh. So he's a big loss there. I actually thought Ulrich Loh would have shifted from 8 to 4. That's kind of something that I thought would happen, because then we'd still keep our two most popular line-out jumpers. Well, not two of them because Evan's not there, but I thought that Ulrich Loh would. Sorry, I'm talking absolute rubbish. Roy Nokia is our second most popular line-out jumper. So I thought Ulrich Loh would have moved in at 4, and they would have sort of done something with Peter Steff there. But, you know, it, yeah, so it's been a while since he's played at 4, and there is a lot. I think it's, you know, Thala not having Eben there is something that we haven't really considered. I don't think we've, as Springbok fans, got used to the idea of him possibly not being around. Like he's been around forever, and we're quite happy for him to stay around for the indefinite future. But what are your thoughts on the locking situation, especially with our starting pair and the bench options?
Yeah, so I'm just doing a very quick Google on my side. Eben Etzebeth is 32 years old. Um, so it's crazy to think that he might play his fourth Rugby World Cup. Um, that I mean, a lock at 36 is not something that's like foreign to us. We've seen the likes of Matfield and Whitelock have just as long with longevity. And this is the first time he hasn't been on a All Black Springbok team sheet since 2013 or something crazy like that. So, he's a constant of constants. So, I guess in some ways it's a good thing to obviously think about this post Urban, but obviously each and every other enforcer lock in the country seems to be injured right now. Poor Ruben van Heerden, who he might have thought he might have had a chance to get into the team, but Jasper Wiese will be the reserve lock on Saturday. But yeah, I think the Springboks have done the best they can in this position. It was going to be a tough ask for Nicholas Jansen van Rensburg to be slotted into the 15, maybe in the 23, because he's only spent just over a week or whatever with the squad. So Nokia's obviously been with the squad a bit longer. So making him one of the locks makes sense. Making Peter Steff lock after he played lock a few weeks ago makes sense. Yeah, and if there's something that happens, I think then it's the Visa or Dixon or low makeshift situation that happens. It's not ideal, but we'll have to see. I know Hendrik Romano, um, as I call him, or Hendrik Ronje said that there's going to be like a fitness test today, and if he passes it, then Etzebeth doesn't get back into the team. So we'll keep our eyes out on it. Maybe it will break as it happens. But the one big advantage with Nokia, Peter Steff, and Dixon is you have three of the biggest motors in rugby in one pack. So what we lose in terms of physicality and ability to get over the advantage line at close contact, and maybe that means Jasper Wiese will be carrying like 20 times in that first half when he plays. We gain with people that can cover all places in the field. I mean, you just need to add Franco Mostert, and you have four of the biggest engines in South Africa.
Yeah, massive. Let's go backwards to Kooks. Front row. So we've got Oxenchair, Bongo Benambi, Francois Herber. We were chatting. There were a couple of rumors this week that Gerrit Steenekamp will get a start, and it seemed a bit crazy. I mean, he has done exceptionally well, but just the idea of not having Oxenchair is a bit wild. So Ox, Bonambi, Malherbe, and then on the bench, Malcolm Marx, Steenekamp, and Vincent Koch. I mean, it's pretty stock standard up front for the Springboks.
Yeah, pretty much stock standard. And I think obviously the All Blacks will probably look at going with Tamati Williams again at three. I mean, he went well against Argentina the last time round, and I think Ox obviously is a little bit shorter than him, so I think Ox can obviously get underneath him. I think that's what that could have been the big reason of starting Ox there. I mean, I do think also the Springboks it's a much of a horses for courses where they go with where they go with their starting props in the second and obviously starting front row and the reserve front row. But I mean, there's no surprises there. So, I mean, sorry, Tyrell Lomax, not Tamati Williams. So I think and Tyrell Lomax has been fantastic. So I'm not too surprised that they're going with Ox first. And I think obviously then the battle between Fletcher Newell and Gerrit Steenekamp is going to be a big one as well off the bench. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm not surprised at all to see Ox starting again. I think, but I also wouldn't be shocked to see Harrison again starting the next test. So, yeah, I mean, what more can you say? I feel like this is probably our our best, sort of front six. If you, our best starting and our base starting and reserve sort of front row. I think this kind of shows that Steenekamp sort of edged Steven Kitts off at the moment for that jersey, and rightfully so. I mean, Steenekamp has been in great form, and Kitts has just got back in the mix. As Kitts now obviously is going to go play for the Western Province this weekend. So, yeah, not too many surprises there.
Yeah, quite interesting. A couple players been released. Thala, Gerrit Steenekamp got a bit of airtime today in the Rassie Erasmus conference where he spoke about how he came into the mix and wasn't really a player that Rassie was focusing on, and had to watch a few games for him to get in, sort of get on it. But he spoke very highly of him and says that he's basically going to be a player that we're going to see for many more moons to come. Your thoughts on him?
I might have missed the first part. Are we talking about Steenkamp, right?
Yeah, Steenekamp, yeah.
No problem. No, he's fantastic. I think it's shown now what like that 5-6 weeks he had with Don Human, I think has changed his career forever, because he was a so-so scrummager, and the Bulls were not a good scrum in the 2022-2023 seasons. And he had a few weeks Don Human, and now all of a sudden he was giving Frans Malherbe and the like some problems. Then, he gets Volcolo at the Bulls, and now obviously the Bulls have one of the strongest scrums in the competition. They gave the Irish front row a lot of issues at Loftus, and we are where we are now. And his work rate around the field has been fantastic. I think that's what's set him apart. And it continues the tradition that we've had since Tendai Tawarira, even since Osterrand. Like, great Springbok loose head props can do a bit around the field and obviously scrum back home. And that's what Steenkamp does. He's great around the field. He's always good for a turnover or two. He carries the ball well. He tackles and defends well. He has a high work rate. And we saw in that first test against Ireland what a scrum with him can do to a pack, where they drove Ireland sort of back to Dublin in that one scrum.
Yeah, quite something. We're in a good space with a number of youngsters coming through, but a couple of old boys that still want to hang around. Tal, I'm going to stay with you. We're going to go into the loose trio. So we've got Sia Khaleesi, captain. We don't really need to say too much more about him. He's just incredible there. But Ben Jason Dixon, blindside, and Jasper Wiese at 8. There was talk about Ulrich Lowe possibly retaining the number 8 jumper just because of his form. He didn't have a poor game. He was pretty decent. He definitely held up his end of the bargain at 8. Did you think that the issue with Eben has changed that setup, or do you think Jasper was going to cruise straight in?
Um, I mean, yeah, well, the leaks that we had earlier in the week seem to suggest we're staying with the team from the Brisbane test. So maybe it did change things, and maybe Erasmus went for a bit more experience to cover for the fact that Nokia is playing what his fourth test, and Peter Steph is playing an unfamiliar position, and you've still got Ben Jason Dixon in the pack as well. So it's a possibility. It doesn't really matter too much. I think, as we talked about last week, having Visa to play 14 minutes and to go just go ape on the All Blacks is probably the best thing that we need right now. So we'll see that. I mean, Cooks. I know Cooks will tweet always about him never going backwards, and yeah, that's. I genuinely think Rassie's going to tell him take 15 carries in the first half and just absolutely run through people. What do you think, Cooks?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think obviously we'll see a lot more an abrasive Jasper Wiese as normal. I think obviously he's going to lead our sort of carrier. I think because of obviously you losing an Eben Etzebeth there and with sort of a massive carrier. I mean, I know Ron Kerr is going to be an absolute workhorse, so as Peter Step to toy out, but obviously Peter Step to toy this year has done the bulk of his damage sort of out wide. But I am loving the increased number of carries that Peter Step has had this season, and it can sort of be reflected by his stats and in his things like leading the competition in almost in line breaks to the stage. But I just think it all goes to Jasper Wiese early on. I think we'll see a lot more of his carrying. I think obviously with now, especially with Eben out, it does make sense to see him start. And I know the bench is a very interesting one because I just really think that Eric Lowe is a cover for Jasper because I don't think Jasper plays 80 minutes as he gets back. I know obviously Rassie said he's been a phenomenal trainer. He said he's been a world class trainer for the last 8 weeks, but he still hasn't played a game since what, when is it, April? April, May. So that's been a while since we played a rugby game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Eric Lowe there almost coming on in second half and sort of trying to keep the momentum up at 8 but with that high volumes of carries. But yeah, it is great to see Jasper Wiese back. I think obviously this is the perfect test for him to come back on. I think the All Blacks, we're going to have to be sort of abrasive. I think the All Blacks are going to be a lot more direct this weekend than they were against England. Maybe because Liam McDonald's gone, but I just do think I do see the All Blacks sort of they. I think the All Blacks against us, they always know that they put the first challenge to front of physically, and I do think they will definitely with a Scotty Barrett there and I mean Ardy and the guys, they'll definitely be up for that fight. So I think Jasper Wiese becomes very very important.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And on the bench, I mean, we've got Van Staden, Lowe, and Quagga Smith. It's almost a injuries aside, if all goes as according to plan, it's basically a whole brand new loose trio, which I think could realistically come into the mix. Thala, do you? How do you see it unfolding? You think you're going to hold one of them back? Let's say that Eben doesn't play and the team stays as it is, or do you think we're going to do a full change of our front row and our loose trio?
I think if Evans there, then he, I think he, I would take out Marco van Staden and put Eben in the team, and obviously have Nokia drop to the bench. And then I think it's more comfortable to do sort of the big sort of reveal of six forwards coming on at the same time, type of thing. But yeah, if it's this sort of like jigsaw puzzle of a bench with three loose forwards and all that sort of stuff, I'm sure. I think most likely someone like Aruk Lowe gets, oh sorry, yeah, one of Aruk Lowe, Quagga Smith gets sort of held back just to see what's going on and just to work out, when if maybe you need a Dixon or a Visa or whoever to come cover at lock. But yeah, I mean, it's also a game state thing. Like the putting on the bomb squad is also used, or putting on them like all six at once or whatever is used to try and stamp on momentum for the Springboks, and it's difficult to do that if like things aren't going your way in your game. So it's also about the game state, I think, and that'll be interesting to see, like how when and how we use the bench, because obviously you see, even Sean's getting excited about it. But I think
No,
it's going to
it's
be interesting to see the approach from the All Blacks about that as well, and see how they set out their bench. Because arguably, you can argue that they also do a 6-2 split if they maybe go if Barrett and Tupelotu are back, which I think they are. Then you can have Tupovai and Sam Darriott at lock, and have maybe Sam Kane as your utility loose forward, and they can sort of match fire with fire. So that'll be interesting.
Tella, I was about to say the exact same thing. I mean, we have a chance to see the All Blacks sort of going 6-2 as well, but I mean, they do tend to stick to their guns quite a bit. So I mean, I would be very very shocked. I do think that Scott Barrett comes straight back in at lock. I think you could see him potentially him or with triple visor, or maybe two visor playing in the four.
you
Scott
wouldn't put
Barrett playing in the
Scott
five.
on the blind.
No, I think Blackadder plays there.
Yeah, I think so too. I was just asking because I know it was just he's played on the blind side, and I thought that might be an option for them. But Blackhead is cooking at the moment.
Yeah, and I think this is the perfect Ethan Blackadder game. You know, I mean, because probably could be thriving to make about 20 tackles against Springboks this weekend. Um, but yeah, I mean, that is a great shot as well of almost putting, almost putting Vi, Derry, and Barrett. I think Scott Barrett. I think it's definitely an option that they will play with. But Teller made a tweet note to AP saying that there's no South African that rates Marco van Staden more than Rassie, and and Rassie loves the option of also of having the two open siders. I think the the thing there for me, if Eben is back and with Low, I think the worry with if Eric Low is that Rassie has sort of finished the last couple of tests with Kwak at 8. So I mean that does mean that Marco Fasad stays, and Marco becomes sort of the um, straight Sofasia, and then Kwak again covered 8. But I would prefer the option of having Eric Low there. I think obviously with the line out, yeah, I think obviously like our locks, it is a concern because I just feel like, yeah, one more knock or an early injury in the game away, we're really in trouble, because you want to see a situation when Eric Lowe is playing there and he hasn't played there for a while, and if Nokia goes down now, it's Peter Steph calling line outs. I know he called against Australia, but the All Blacks are much more better line outside. So yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of I won't say we're vulnerable there, but it is a position of concern, and it's been a position that has been of concern for a while, because the All Blacks do also have a good front five, and they do have a good line out as well. And it's a front five that's gotten better and better and better. And it's almost, I mean, what they did to Argentina 2 weeks ago when they absolutely dismantled them, and against England that they scrambled, and even last year against us they scrambled as well. I mean, they probably still think that their last scrum in the World Cup final should have been called a penalty. So the thing is, I just wish I say wish I am a little bit concerned. It's like that if maybe it's against Australia, I'll be fine, but against the All Blacks, whose sort of front five is getting better and better as the games go. Oh man, I just really hope Eben Etzebeth comes through the session today.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm in the cooked camp on if Evan does make it fit and come into the side. I think Ulrich Low drops out. Just it's something that I think will happen, and what probably Rusty's been showing more. Thala, let's go to the most important part of the game, the backs. what is what does Grant Williams have to do to earn a start? Is it his versatility of playing scrum off and having speed to play on the wing that keeps him on the bench in a 6-2? But our halfbacks being Reinach and Feinberg and Gomazulu, there's quite a lot to talk about there.
Um, I think we alluded to this last week when we were selecting our team. I think I probably said that it's more likely that Grant Williams stays on the bench because of his value as someone that can really impact the game. And Yeah, he's in that Bowden Barrett stage of his career when he was in the All Blacks in 2014, 2015, where great ball player and he's slowly adding to his skill set. And then obviously we saw after Carter and then left, Barrett became player of the year. So there's nothing wrong with being sort of an impact player. Rassie's been faithful to giving him like 30 odd minutes a game most times, and he's done really well with his time on the field. So yeah, for the Grant Williams fans, I don't think there's too much to worry about. I think it's actually a good thing because Williams will sort of be having that number 21 or number 22 jersey and can relax with that while Faf, Reynach, and Hendricks are doing a Royal Rumble to fight for the 9 jersey. So all he needs to do is continue to do the good stuff that he does when he comes on the field is bring a bit of pace, bring that running ability, kick well, take options well, and you know the opportunity will come one day. But it also, if it doesn't come like now or for the rest of the season, that's also okay. Like build up your skill set so that if and when you then become the undisputed first choice, there's going to be no one that touches you. So I actually like this for Williams, and it's also a nice mix of 9 and 10. So obviously Reynach doesn't have that many tests, but he's been around for over a decade. He's there to run the game with Sasha Feynman Zulu. And then in the second half, at some stage, less experienced Grant Williams in terms of tests. He's there. I mean, although he's like what 27 or whatever, but he's there with Andre Pollard, who has all the experience in the world.
Yeah. Kooks, big talking point is Sasha getting the jump over Andre, especially against the All Blacks. But another big talking point is not having Villy at 15 because of the playmaker option. How do you? I mean, it's a lot for Sasha to deal with straight away. But I mean, he's spoken of very highly by all the Springbok coaches, and he seems to have a pretty calm head on his shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too concerned with Sasha having a start at 10. I think of it. I think if there's every sort of test he's sort of come to, he's almost passed. I think the tough one was obviously down in Perth in those conditions, but again, it's a learning curve for him that he'll take out. But I mean, I think this weekend obviously it'll be quite nippy, but the sun will be out, so he'll definitely be able to throw the ball around up here in the high falls. But I mean, I think the Sasha and Fuzzy combination is going to be a good one because of it's a fairly nice it's a good balance. I mean, obviously there's no one that's the playmaker that Billy Leroux, but I do like the option of Sasha has the option of Delaney's become he's passed more than he's ever passed in his career but it feels like first Springboks now. But I think with Fassi, you have the option of being a little bit more direct because Fassi is a great playmaker, but is also just such a great ball and is always looking to run. His counter attacks are one of the best. Was the best in the URC. So, but also with Fassi is you do have the option of someone whose boots come a long way. Fassi at the most 50-22s in the URC as well. So, I just think the balance between a Sasha and a Fassi is going to be a great balance. I think obviously we might see Sasha taking a lot more the reins of 10, sort of a lot more players coming off him, and then obviously trying to use Sasha in that ball. I mean, trying to use Fast in that ball in behind where Fast is almost is his running game more that's a threat to you than more his playmaking. But I don't want us to underestimate Fast's playmaking. I mean, Zok has played multiple positions before, but I know 15 is by far his best. But I just think also Fassi is a great playmaker, but he does almost his best work in the wider channels. I think that's where the Springboks will also be looking to hurt the All Blacks, especially now if you're looking when you're taking out wide, especially when you have Peter Steph there, Sears running there. Now adding a Fassi there, the threat becomes even bigger. So I think that's where we can sort of hurt the Springboks more. I think obviously we can have Damien Delendy sort of punching a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised to see Damien Delendy sort of carrying a lot more than he has sort of this year. And then him and Jesse, and then obviously out wide, you'll see a lot more of a fussy and sort of in the wingers coming in. So I think that could be the way we attack the All Blacks this weekend.
Yeah, I actually want to take it a little bit differently, Cooks. I think Damien Dialendi could actually be more of the playmaker this weekend and attack sort of coming off him. So just to sort of balance the load with Sasha, I can kind of see Damien being used maybe at first, maybe to sort of going straight through the guts, and then at some stage or as like a option, the ball comes out of him, and like attacks can happen that way. Because Fassi, as you said, it's not like Fassi can't be a first receiver. He played fly half in high school and all that sort of stuff. And people from King Williamstown and Dale will tell you all about that, and that he's probably the best fly half they've seen. Um, but I think in the professional game, Fassi's best playmaking is outside on the trams, and it's getting that ball with a bit of space to sort of use his pace, use his ability to beat defenders, and then he makes the right choice. Either skin someone alive himself, step them, or put someone away. So you want Fassi to be on that outside channel. So and Creel's also similar in that way. I think he's more of that. I think you get two types of playmakers. Larue's good at being a playmaker sort of close to the ruck and far out wide as well. And it's just a skill that unfortunately not many South Africans have. Whereas I think with Creel and Fassi, they're probably more of our outside playmakers. Um, I wouldn't be too surprised to see David Yalendi being used as a distributor more. And that was kind of what was happening even in the island test, that especially that first test in Pretoria, where I think we're going to play a similar game plan of trying to run the All Blacks off their feet, is get David Yalendi to be the one passing, get David Yalendi to have the pod around him and choosing the right option, and use his ability to obviously just run over people to make defenders like focus on him, and then the ball comes out or it goes through the back, whatever the case may be. So it's also going to be quite interesting for Sasha. I think he's the type of fly half that we haven't had in South Africa for a long time that can run the game himself, and this will be almost the ultimate test of that. Not that obviously he's doing it himself, but that he doesn't have Larue to sort of drive with them at the back seat. Like he can really call the plays and call the phases as much as he can. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see because I think we're kind of trying to plan post Larue. Rassie also mentioned, look, Larue's not getting younger and he probably won't make the World Cup. I hope that's not news to Willie Larue himself. I'm sure I'm sure that probably made him mad. But this is with Fassi. I mean, Damien Willems almost falls in between Fassi and Larue, but with Fassi, there's less of that sort of like second fly half playmaking. It's more sort of playmaking out wide. He'll handle that as long as you handle the inside stuff. So I'm very keen to see how both of them go because I think this, if it goes really well, geez, their stocks will go up.
I was going to say, yeah, Tyler, I love that point you make about dogs. I think, what we saw against Ireland, especially that first test, is I would love to see that sort of game plan as well. But one thing I would, though, love, Tyler, is to see, I don't want to see him passing more than he carries. I would love to still see him sort of getting the carry stocks up
Mm.
there. I do think he's still our best ball carrier, especially in the backs. And it's something that's been great for him for many a years. I think, and what I love is, and what I love about him is the fact that obviously he can still, be able to link up. He's got a great pass. He can hit guys short. Can pass in behind. So I think with Damien, I mean, Tyler, I love that option because of so many of the things that you can sort of that you can play around with him there at 12. But also, I think with the Villa thing, also I think one thing we need to remember. I was saying this on the weekend, guys, that Villa's also a one of one. There's not many like fullbacks that have been like Villaroo before. That sort of playmaker, the brains that Oak has. I mean, I really hope that when he's done, like Rassie talk about him, the work he's doing with the youngsters, and I mean, that looks an absolute genius. That I hope he will go into coaching when he's as soon as he's done. But Phil is a one on one, and we can't ask sort of our 15s to play like Philly the same way. It's very hard to ask of Scrum to play like Faf because Faf is also a one of one. So I think with Fast, I think he offers the Springboks a completely different threat, a wider threat that we should have had at 15 for a while. Because I don't because I think with Willem Satella, you saw right. I don't think Willem sort of is the runner that Fassi is, but Fassi, but he's got a lot more playmaking than sort of Fassi has, and you're right. And Williams is almost in between a Willie and a Fassi, and I think with Fassi it's a completely different threat, and I'd love to see how he does cook in those wider channels and sort of running at because I think with the All Blacks defense as well, I think there's holes there to punish because I mean they've always been quite flat. They don't get off the line. in Argentina. So we saw what I can't remember what Argentina fullback is, the mayhem he caused in those wider channels for Argentina in that first test, especially. So I think that's something that you look at for the Springboks, as if you having Fuss there running in those channels where Argentina hurt the All Blacks. I mean, Fuss becomes sort of a no brainer, and yeah, again, just reward for his form.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
interesting.
so yeah. Sorry, go on, Sean.
No, no, no. I was going to wrap up.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I think literally the only player that can match what Leroux does is playing Bowden Barrett at 15. That's how far you have to go to get that, ability to play make and sort of be that secondary playmaker. And the All Blacks have had to pick what their second, third best fly half ever, or at least in the last 20 years, and put him at fullback to try and assist a 10 who has some deficiencies. Like that's what you have to do to fill that. So yeah, I just looked at the stats from the test against Ireland: 5 carries and 12 passes. If that becomes 7 carries and 10 passes, then sort of just a bit more close, I wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and we're in for a good one. To be fair, like uh, the Springbok way, let's say 10 or maybe 5+ years ago, was always about replacing a player like Villaroo with someone that you expect to play like Villaroo. We were big on square peg, round hole kind of vibe, and we're probably in the best era with the best brains that we can replace a guy like Villaroo with other players, but that they play their own game. I think that was the biggest thing, and the biggest problem that we've had in the past is not allowing players to play at their strengths, rather play at somebody else's strengths and expect them to do silly things. But yeah, happy days. We're really looking forward to it. We can wrap up there on the Springbok stuff. We're going to chat a little bit about some news that's been floating around.
Okay,
We've got two.
can I,
Yo, I don't want
can
to
I
wrap up
what,
now. I want to talk to you.
sorry, can I add one last point about the Springboks here quickly?
Please, no,
You know,
go on.
a lot of people are, looking at this highlight, just reading the comments on Twitter. A lot of guys obviously were expecting for us to go with a bit more experience. I must say, I'm really glad that Rassie sort of, went out there and given a session and a fussy a chance, because at the end of the day, we got to see these guys have a crack. And I loved, Rassie's comments about Fuzz saying that he's not just his cover. He said the guys played well, so you got to give him a chance. And you know, back in the days, in peak All Blacks days, we used to love the fact that they used to give guys, guys make debuts in harsh conditions. I remember watching Liam Masabawaga make his debut in Ellis Park in 2015 and almost like play for a World Cup spot. And the All Blacks have been known to sort of throw guys in the deep end. Steve Hansen loved putting on inexperienced guys in the last 30 minutes, 20 minutes in big tests to sort of see how they hold up before, sort of taking them to a World Cup. And obviously the World Cup is far away, but we got to see the likes of Apelele Fast come through eventually. We've got to give them opportunities eventually. And yes, the guy played against Wales, obviously played against Portugal in Bloom and then Australia. Now he's going to do it against the All Blacks, and I think that's what you want to see. And I'm glad that Rassie is obviously this is the year to sort of do those things. And I don't think, it was funny when some of the comments are saying that, oh, maybe like is this not a stronger side? I'm like, there hasn't been a better fullback this year than Apelele Fassi. So this is actually just reward. So you can't say it's a weakened side if you're throwing in a Fassi. And you look at yeah. So you look at someone like a Sasha. You got to throw them in there. I mean, he's been great at 10 all season for the Springbok. So yeah. So I'm just I want to say I'm glad that these youngsters in inverted commas are getting a gig.
No, you're 100% right, and I agree with you totally. We We've been in the situation for so many years where we bring guys in emergencies, and now we're almost not doing it in that way. And it's exactly why you say the guys are on form, they're getting rewarded. And the best part about it is, I really do feel, and I know I've spoken about it in the past, but it's a kind of thing that makes South African rugby strong as a whole. Like, you get guys performing because they know they're going to get a look in, like a realistic look in. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to Saturday. It has been the longest break.
Oh, me
Kooks,
too.
yeah, it's been crazy. But just two pieces of news and one really big one, but we'll touch on that secondly. The second one is David Nucifora, who is an Aussie, but he was with Irish Rugby with Joe Schmidt, and he's been in Australia. He's now been hired by Scotland Rugby in an advisory role of, oh shit, I don't know, like what he's going to be looking at pathways for players, which essentially means he's going to be traveling around the world looking for players to sign, or what? What am I talking about here?
We'll see him in a lot more Curry Cup games and 21 Curry Cup games, making sure that a few more players end up in Scotland. Yeah, I mean, it's massive news. I mean, obviously, it wasn't a great ending for him in Ireland when he sort of left. I mean, obviously, he did. There was good and bad with Devon Zafora there, but yeah, I think obviously with Scotland, I think it's something they've needed, sort of the pathways coming through, and you know what, Sharky, I think with Scotland, I think it's something that I'm glad they've been proactive about because you look at what obviously Cardiff did winning the URC. Sorry, Glasgow. Geez, Cardiff. Sorry, that is Cardiff couldn't believe I just gave them a URC title. Glasgow sort of winning the URC. I think it shows that there are things that are getting right in their rugby, and I think obviously, I mean, we know the frustrations that bring the national side is, but even with those frustrations, it's obviously they're not winning the second or third big game, but they have made strides forward. So I think hopefully with David Nucifora, I think that they want to keep making those strides forward, making sure that the pathways are looked after, the talents coming through, because I do think, Sharky, that Scotland, you know, Scottish rugby is like, it's on the brink of something great and it could either sort of go up or sort of crumble. So they're in that position where, like, especially like you even see the world rankings, they're not in they're not in the obviously in the top tier, the France, Springboks, Ireland, potentially the All Blacks, but they're just below. Like they're fighting it out with like sort of England, you know, in like with the England, they're sort of trying to see who can be in the sort of the next best. So, but I think now someone like David Nucifora can do a good job in sort of ensuring those pathways are looked after.
Yeah, yeah. And the other massive bombshell and big news that's come out is honorary South African Felix Jones has left England with immediate effect. Now, a lot of people had a lot of things to say about the amount of, well, I don't know, assistant coaches that came and went in the England setup under Eddie Jones. But I tell you something, it's happening increasingly more. He's a massive, massive loss. I really, he said it wasn't a happy work environment. I'm not quoting him. That's just kind of the gist of what I picked up. But that is a massive, massive loss for them. I mean, are England going to kind of stick with the defensive setup that he brought in? Are they going to just completely overhaul it and redo it? You can't help but think that this is big, big trouble for England.
This is massive. I mean, don't forget a few weeks ago they lost Elliot Walters as well.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
that's
They can come
two.
back here if they
Well,
want, both of them.
yeah, it's two. I think Ella was good. Has gone to Ireland already, so they've
Yeah.
quickly Ireland quickly snapped him up. So it's two World Cup winning sort of coaches that have just gone out of the England camp, and I think Felix Jones, obviously, I think it's massive. I mean, those are two of some of the best coaches in the world in their respective fields, and for someone like Steve Borthwick to sort of lose guys like that, it makes you wonder what is going on in that camp, because it really felt like in England they were turning a corner, and we sort of saw that against the All Black. I mean, Six Nations being Ireland and then against the All Blacks, where you could see like, man, there's something they're working on there, and I would hate to. And I even said to you, we said in the podcast that I would hate to play England now at the end of the year trip, because now
Mm.
that test becomes even harder, because whatever they're doing under Felix Jones is getting better and better, and was about to come right. That defensive system now, they got to bring in a new defensive coach. You almost start from scratch, and I feel like now they've taken sort of from end of what from when Six Nations started to to have the All Blacks game. It kind of felt like they made like 3 or 4 steps forward. Now it feels like they made like 5 steps back. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what's happening under Steve Borthwick there, but Sharky, for me to lose two assistants like that in a short space of time, that's very, very troubling.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I tell you, side note, if um, if Felix Jones can make his way to Australia, that would be quite something. If Joe Schmidt can get him to come there, but I agree. This is massive. I mean, like England, after all that shit they went through, then they kind of like Borthwick got a blank slate, and then he got these guys on board that are flipping world beaters, and to have them not be happy in the environment and stuff, there's something going on there. And it's been up and down. Like even when Borthwick took over, they had coaches in like part time, and then they left, and then they signed on permanently, and they've come and they've gone. So it's going to take a while for them to kind of find their way. You feel, but yeah, I'm trying to think of. I'm sure a lot of people would want to go to England and coach. I think Sean Edwards would be a great shout. I'm not sure if he's still in the French setup. I think he is. I'm not entirely sure though. But I mean, yeah, it would be. It's such an odd thing. It's literally a bombshell. Like no one really expected it. But Cooks, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Just for everyone
But
that's
quickly,
listening,
Sharky,
yo
but if you say you Felix Jones, if where do you think, for example, like looking at the landscape of rugby now, what do you think is the best sort of job for him, and where should he go?
you should come to the Springboks. Um, Felix Jones, honestly, I think if anywhere, if you can go anywhere and budget and anything wasn't a problem, I think the right place for him to go right now would be Australia. I think Australia with the Lions tour coming up with where they are currently, um, with them hosting the World Cup in a couple of years, they've got a bunch of youngsters. They've got they're trying to find themselves. I think that's the great shot. Like you want to go there and sort of imprint yourself on a team that really want to learn. I'm not saying England don't, but there's obviously a hassle there. And the other one, which scares the shit out of me, is if you went to Ireland. But yeah, like I think Ireland and Australia are the two big realistic options. And I also wouldn't be surprised now that he's open and available if he wouldn't go on Lions tour next year.
Yeah, that's my big one as well. So my three, I mean, number one, I'd love to see him go. I don't love to, but I think if I was Felix Jones, I think he'll be great I think he'll be great in Ireland. So funny enough, because remember, don't forget, Simon Easterby takes over that side soon with next year when Andy Farrell sort of goes to on Lions duty.
Yes.
So sort of then I would have Felix Jones almost doing similar to the Springboks, where when the Springboks he was sort of that def- dual defensive coach with Jacques Nienaber, obviously, as well. So I think that him and Simon Easterby is a role they could do together. But if there's any team, Sharky, that I feel need a Felix Jones, I think it's the All Blacks. I think defensively they need an injection, something new. Because again, I mean, for some, I don't know, they're still for me they're quite passive on defense, and obviously like they're not known for getting off the line. But I do think someone like a Felix Jones, and I know obviously the All Blacks are set in their own ways, set in their own ideas.
Yeah.
I just think someone like that can breathe new life in there. Someone new, someone young as well. Um, I think it would be good for the All Blacks. I think obviously Australia is a big one, and yeah, I mean obviously shocking. I mean, I think mission number one would be to get him back home, get him back here. But I also think he may feel like he's probably done enough in South Africa. That he's of, I mean, back to back World Cups. I mean, I think he's to come back and create history. But yeah, I think if I had to rank them, I'd probably say Ireland, the All Blacks, um, Australia. Geez, I mean, Scotland. What they would give for him. I know Scotland's got. I mean, Steve Tandy is a very handy defensive coach as well. But or you never know, Shark. Maybe he decides maybe it's time for him to become a head coach. And
Yeah.
now he's still got to look around. But I think obviously I think he may have, if he wants to be a head coach, I want to be sort of. I mean, most sides now are all set in that department, obviously, because as they but wrap up preseason. So unless he sort of stays put, takes some time off, and sees what happens next year, because I think now if you are a domestic coach with anywhere sort of URC, any under pressure, having someone like Felix Jones not having a job, that, that puts a lot of pressure on you, because you know if he's unemployed, there's a lot of unions there that could deal with having a Felix Jones. Then I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him go the head coaching route as well.
Yeah. I am. I'm very surprised you said the All Blacks because I'm trying to think now. I just don't know if they'd be open to that. They're very insular. Like they really like to do things in house. That would be interesting. Also, something quite scary if they do pull it off. But yeah, so anyone out there, he's wherever he goes, they're going to be a success in some way, shape, or form. But that's going to wrap up the first of our 2 podcasts for this week as we touched on the Springbok squad. On Thursday, we'll be hosting. We'll be having Jamie Wall as a guest. Jamie Wall is a Kiwi and a journalist, but he, more importantly, is the author of The 100 Years War, which is the story of the 100 years of the All Blacks and the Springboks. So be sure to subscribe, and you can pick up that podcast later in the week as we do a preview to the Springboks and the All Blacks in the opening game of their 2-match test series, mini test series in the Rugby Championship. But yeah, that's going to wrap everything up here. Thank you so much for listening. We will be on your airwaves again later this week, and have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.